Hello everyone, welcome back to IKC English. Great to see you here. Today, right now, we're going to talk about formal and informal language in English. Yes. So, we have some ways of speaking, and some of them are just for everyday use, the way we speak to people normally. And then we have another way of speaking when it's a more official matter. And this is formal voice. So we have the informal voice. I've written normal because this is the way we just normally speak. And the formal voice is for official emails or something everything that's very official and very fancy, then we use that one. But if you use it normally, you sound very distanced and a little posh maybe. So we need to be a little careful with this. We need to use it when appropriate. So, what is this? What is the characteristics? The formal voice is less personal than the informal. This means that we try not to say, I did this or he did that or something, but this was done. So the focus is on the action rather than the person. Whereas normally we just say what we want, right? And formal language often uses passive voice. And down here, informal is active voice. So what is passive and active voice? Let's have a look at that. So the active voice would be, I am baking a cake. I'm baking a cake. That is the active voice because I'm baking, that is an action. Therefore it is active. And the focus is on the person. I'm the one who bakes the cake. But if we do it in the less straightforward way, we make it the passive voice. Then the focus is on the cake and what's happening, not on the person. So then you would say, the cake was baked. And then you can add by me, right? So this means exactly the same thing. So this is past tense, but you could do it in present as well. But this one is passive voice. Was, that's not action and action, is it? It's just something that is. So the cake was baked. That's just something that happened. So it's not really right now happening because someone is doing it. It's just the cake was baked. So the passive voice is made when you put is to be of some form, right? So this is the verb. We do it like this, verb. And the cake, that's the subject. Subject. And this is just extra. Up here, the very normal, straightforward one. This is the verb. This is the subject. And then this is what's happening, or what is being done, what the person has. Down here, what is being done is the verb instead. And the subject is the thing it is being done to. So here it's not about the person, it's about the thing. So you turn it the other way around. We can get another example. He shut the door. Shut. That means to close. The door was shut. So here again, we have he shut the door. And down here, the door was shut. So the subject up here is the person who does it. The subject down here is the thing it's being done to. And that is active and passive voice. And they're usually built like this, with the thing being the subject, then the verb, was, usually some form of to be, and then the thing that's being done. And that's the way the passive voice usually does it, whereas the active voice is just the person, which is the subject, thing that's being done, the verb, and then what it is the person does. So that's the straightforward normal way. I am walking, you are running. They are all built up like this. So this is a more complicated way of doing it, but it's also a more formal way. Yes. Let's see what else we have. So the informal voice here has a lot of some more things that are, and then of course the formal one is characterized by not having these. So one of them is slang. Slang means all the words that we just made up for something that may mean something completely different, but we use it for everyday use for something else, like cool. Cool. This actually means something a little cold, but not too cold, just cool. This board is a little cold actually, but it's cool if you say. So cool can be about temperature, but we use it as slang to say that something is cool, right? So something is good and something is modern, maybe stylish. So that has nothing to do with the word cool, only that we all agreed this is now a word about being stylish. So that is slang. Cool is both a normal word about temperature and a slang expression. And these expressions belong in the informal language. There are some slang expressions that are just so normal that it will be okay in some situations in the formal, but usually the informal language likes to spice things up in the language and use idioms and phrasal verbs and different slang expressions, but the formal voice is just straightforward. So you just say whatever it is you mean, and you say it very neutrally. So that's how you try to be formal instead. The informal like slang. So cool is totally normal thing to say, because everyone knows what you mean, and sometimes using slang is a good way of expressing what you actually want to communicate. We also have abbreviations. Abbreviations, that's when you have more words or a longer word, and then you just take it down to some letters and make a dot. That could be all sorts of things. Some of them are very informal, and you can use them on the computer or something like that. So that could be BRB, which means be right back. So I will be right back. And this is informal because it's abbreviation. If it was formal, you'd say I will be back in a short moment, or I will be back before long, or something like that, but you would not just say it right, PRB. That is informal. Another informal thing is contractions. We use contractions a lot in English because when we speak, we just automatically contract some words. For example, I can not. I can not. Now this can be contracted in two ways, and that's a little special, because you can just make it one word, and then you write cannot. And this would be okay in formal language because it's such an official way of saying it still. So you still say cannot. And that's completely fine. And this is an actual way of spelling it. You can write this. But many times in just normal use of English, we would write can't. So we take out the O and we put a little apostrophe. And that's a very normal thing with contraction. Can't, it's, or isn't. All these things, we put the apostrophe because we take something out. This belongs in informal language. So if you're writing a school paper, an official email, or something like that, you don't write these. Okay? You can say them still because it's just speaking language, but this spoken language is not used formally. And that's a whole big difference between these two. The informal, when writing, you just write what you normally say. It's just speaking language. But the formal one is not a way most of us usually speak. You can speak like that, obviously, but mostly we just speak like, well, we just do whatever we want, right? So when you're just writing with a friend, talking with a friend, just use informal, that's the normal way. And the formal is for more official business, and that's when you don't want to write the same way that you usually speak, or speak the same way you usually do. So that's contractions. We also have phrasal verbs, and these are also for informal voice. Phrasal verbs can be all sorts of things, but they're just a verb and a preposition or adverb, and together they make sometimes another meaning than it may sound like. But these are like small expressions that we use in everyday talking. So for example, pick up. I picked it up, right? It just means to lift something. But we don't use these kind of things in formal language because we try to be very specific and very precise in formal language. So we don't say things that could actually sound like something else. For example, run out of. That sounds like you're running out of a house, right? And it can be that. It can also just be running out of toilet paper because people were hoarding it for some reason. And bring up. That sounds like you actually carry something upstairs or up somewhere, but it can just mean that you start talking about something. So these things are another way we can just say something that means something else, but everyone knows what we're talking about. And we do that a lot when we think about it in normal language, but we don't do it in formal language, so be careful. And these are the ways of formal and informal voice in English. So, when you're trying to speak formally, try to avoid slang, abbreviations, contractions, phrasal verbs, idioms probably also, and sometimes use a passive voice. But you don't have to always use a passive voice in formal language, although in informal language you would nearly never use passive voice, you just use active. Because active voice is the normal one. And these things, there are levels of it. I made 2 boxes here, but this is like a very strict way of dividing it, because it's like scale. So sometimes we'd use a little bit of some of it and a little bit of something else, and then make medium formality or something like that. And it all depends on the situation. So you need to try to read the situation. Is this just a friendly conversation? Is this an official thing? Or is this somewhere in between? Maybe you're talking to someone you just met, and you don't want to be completely informal, but you don't want to sound like you're giving a press briefing either. And then you have to have to control your language to fit the situation. And we do that all the time without thinking about it. But when it's our second language, sometimes we have to be a little careful with it. So, I hope you learned something. I hope this helped. Hopefully. Have a great day. God bless.